Well, shalom. How are you this fine day? I hope it's an early morning for you. We're back for another edition of Wanted, Dead or Alive. Yes! All right. Last time where I left y'all was right at a showdown of all showdowns. If you don't know about this story, it's ridiculous. It's deadly. Seriously. Hundreds and hundreds of people are about to die. It's fantastic. Not for them, obviously, but another dude's going to run with supernatural speed, so you know what, all those Marvel movies and everything else been preconditioning you to the rise of the Gibborim, the mighty men and women of Yahuah. I know y'all think it's about the bad Gibborim. You're like, it's the Nephilim. The Nephilim are abounding everywhere. All them GMO people are going to come up and they're going to just terrify the earth. Listen, the real people that are going to terrify the earth are the sons and daughters of Yahuah. Super biblical. The dread of us gets on our enemies. When our ways are pleasing before Yahuah, he makes even our enemies to be at peace with us. And you know why? Because they're like, dang, I don't want to die. Because if we mess with that guy, we die. It's like that. It's very biblical. We're going to get to a better understanding of how that works and how Yahuah preserves his anointed people, even from the most dangerous people on the face of the earth. This is one of the greatest stories you've maybe heard, maybe not. I sure hope not, because it'd be thrilling if this is the first time. We're going to be bouncing around a little bit all over the place because that's how my mind works, and it's good for you, and it's super early. Yes, the household is sleeping, which means I've got full reign of the living room. Now, first of all, should we talk about disciplines of a righteous man of Yah? Probably. Listen, y'all, one of the greatest disciplines you can ever establish in your life is to rise up early. It's hard to do. Goodness gracious. Early on in my walk with Yah, someone gave me a piece of advice and said, listen, give him an hour of your life every day and watch how much it changes you. He told me, try to read the book of Proverbs every day. He was like, listen, just read the first chapter of Proverbs for whatever day of the month you're in. Read that chapter. And he's like, and then pray diligently for 30 minutes. He's like, just try that. And I did for a week and was like, whoa. This is profound. I started reading more than one chapter because I don't read one chapter every 30 minutes. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. It depends on the types of study you're doing. Anyways, it started to establish this discipline in me that I just got up an hour earlier than I needed to. Now, as you start to get older in life and your responsibilities increase, the temptation draws you away to do that less. And if you can continue to maintain the vigilance to get up early to do that. Because before, up until even like December, I was like, I want to stay up late because that's my time. That's like my window of time to like have me time. Parents out there are raising their hands. They're like, that's my only time. No, you could get up earlier and beat them to the punch. Poof. I'm telling you, you could do it. You could get up so early that nobody even thinks about getting up then because they're like, why would you? Like 4:30. People are like, even your roosters tick that you're awake and turning on lights so early. And you're like, you betcha, I'm going to beat you to the sunrise, son. And now you have even more ample excuses. You can beat the sunrise even easier. A lot of you just got an extra hour of fantastical, mythological, made-up time called daylight savings. Hey, you know what's not true? That. You know what is true? Biblical timekeeping goes by the sun, the moon, the stars forever. It's super righteous. Oh, actually, there's going to come a time where he says we don't need the sun because he will be a light to us, which is exciting. Anyways, I should jump right into this because I'm going to get long-winded because I got ample opportunities to eat oatmeal. Yes. If you didn't know it, if you want to do long, drawn-out narrations of reading the scriptures out loud, this is a nuclear weapon in your training arsenal right here. Cinnamon, honey, oats. Lots of boiling water. It will keep your mouth going prodigiously. It's amazing. One of my favorite tools in the arsenal. All right, let's jump right back in. We left Eliyahu, who's our most wanted dead or alive guy right now. But the truth is, it's a great setup. All this is really about is a great setup because Yahuwah is all about bringing about his word. He's all about establishing his word. Let me go to Psalm 119 first. Hold on. I read Psalm 119 the other day. I didn't even read the whole thing, but I read through the first, 40 pages. There was a lot of crying in my house last week. Lots. A lot of crying. And I was just sitting in my chair just sobbing. I was like, oh, Shabbat. Tears. Lots of tears. Just endless tears in my house. Chelsea, if you guys could please, I'm sincerely asking, pray for my wife. Pray for our home. And pray for her health and strength because this pregnancy has been unbelievably difficult, and even more so lately. We had a we still are battling severe exposure to mold in our RV. And now we just got a weapon in our toolkit, but known as an ozone generator, which I think is going to make an incredible difference. However, her body is struggling tremendously, and there's been a lot of liver damage, and we're trying to detox a lot of that stuff out, and she's just like, her strength is just not there. It's many, many things that are going on with her. But she's like one of the healthiest people ever. However, this mold is just like corrupting our health and our vitality. But we know Yahuah will establish and strengthen us, but we could really use all the prayer warriors that we can get to just back us up in every way, shape, or form that you possibly can, because we need it. She just sits there and cries a lot of times. Because she has this just constant itching that just takes over her whole body because there's bile salts building up, and it just makes her itching uncontrollable. Like, you can't sleep, you can't eat, you can't do anything. You're just sitting there in agony. The girls like scratch her with hairbrushes all over. They're like, they call it treatments, and the girls all like surround her and scratch her back and scratch her belly and scratch her legs, and she like soaking her feet in ice water, and she's just trying all kinds of stuff. But it's so brutal to watch. You sit there and you're like, we're trying to do everything we can, but on one side of the equation, like, she's just got to endure until this baby is born in so many ways. And it's just like, yeah. So we have days like this.
Crazy.
How are you doing there?
Not good.
Yeah, that's
just trying to. I have the window
open.
I'm trying to
that's the prize bucket.
cool myself down so I don't throw up.
How's pregnancy?
This has been the hardest thing, the hardest pregnancy I've ever had. It's been incredible testing, and it's been one thing after another. Just physical challenges to overcome. I think I'm seven and a half months pregnant right now. 28 weeks. I don't even know if that's 7.5. Whatever. In my mind, it's 7.5. I have a new cough that just sprung up the other day. Mucus out of nowhere. I'm having hot flashes, nausea, diarrhea, achy joints all over. So this is probably just like a flu or some kind of just basic sickness. But on top of that, just having sciatic pain, back pain all over. Every single joint of mine hurts. I have one linen sock on because I'm trying to help my ankles to feel better because my ankles are in so much pain right now. And but then I got too hot, so I took off the and I drank a tea, and I have this heating pad on my back because I was trying to have my back feel better, but then I think I got too overheated, and then I felt nauseous, like I was gonna throw up. So it's just like this. It's just a battle. It's a constant battle. I didn't sleep last night. I had horrible insomnia and just slept terribly. I woke up this morning and I just asked my daughters if they would pray for me, and I just cried. I just sat on my exercise ball and just cried, and they just held me and they just prayed over me. And then Nathan came out and he's like, "Oh, honey, what's going on?" And I just was crying and crying and crying and crying.
Oh, girl.
Some days I wake up and it's just so hard and I just cry. I just cry and I'm just so uncomfortable. I'm in so much pain all day long. And then other days are great. I'm having so much pelvic pain, which I have had with all my babies, but I have to wear this like pelvic girdle to hold up my belly and strap everything in and support it, because if I don't, my back and pelvis just ache. They just absolutely ache. Every step I take, they just ache. So it's been quite a doozy. But every day is an opportunity to overcome, and endure and trying to stay positive and remember that the trials are only for our good. They're only ever for our good because they refine us in a way that only going through something like that would. I'm working on my endurance right now. And in 2 Peter it talks about how, chapter 1, it talks about building up your faith in righteousness, and from righteousness to knowledge, knowledge to self-control, self-control to endurance. I feel like I'm at that stage right now of endurance. And then it says endurance to reverence, which is the fear of Yahuah. And then from the fear of Yahuah, you go to brotherly affection, and then from brotherly affection to love. And it's made to... the trials help to perfect our faith in Him. So even though it's hard, I'm trying to just endure. Because I want to get to the next phase of just fear and reverence of Him alone. And not letting fear of any of these ailments, any of these physical challenges make me afraid to give birth, because it's such a battle of the mind. I feel like this whole pregnancy has been a complete battle of the mind right here. Battling off that fear. That's a stronghold for so many women. Fear of childbirth, fear of dying. Fear of not being able to overcome. It's such a battle of the mind. And it's a daily surrendering of that fear and laying it down before Him so that we fear Him and Him alone. So that's where I'm at today. At 7.5 months pregnant.
Come here.
It's a long road, and it's...
Jane, grab your bowl out of the trash.
I still have a long road to go.
Grab your bowl out of the
But one
trash.
day at a time, that's all I can do.
I need to get your food. And grab my bowl that's at the table.
And it's like chronic illness right now. It's for about 4 months. I mean, really, more like 9. And it's unbelievable. So we could use your prayers. But I say that to y'all because I know that every single person, like, we're taking courage in these verses that are like, listen, don't think you're the only one who's suffering like this. There's people all over the world who are suffering like you are suffering. What you're suffering is nothing unique to you. So be of good cheer, you know, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to continue to maintain the fruits of the Spirit. And I took some serious comfort in Psalm 118. Check this out. There's just a few in here. I'm not going to read the whole chapter yet. I already did. If you want to listen to me read the entire book of Psalms, check out the link in the description alone below. You can download it at snatchfromtheflames.com, by the way. There's super pertinent information, y'all, in the descriptions below. So just hang in there if you want to. Go ahead. All right, you ready? Here's just one. He says, Dalit, my being has been clinging to the dust. Revive me according to your word. That's how you get brought back to life. That's where I cried lots right there. Right there at that point was like, my being is just in the dust from grief, like Job. My wife has sores on her body. She's sitting there with sores from the scratching. I'm like, she's like Job. I'm sitting here staring at her, and I'm like, she's Job right now. What are you doing? Your wife's Job. And you're like, I can't be. I'll take all of it. I'd want to take her infirmity from her. At the same time, I don't, because I don't want to take on pregnancy. But I do want to take on the pain. I just want to lift up the burden. And I think this, for the first time, is driving me to such a place that I'm like desperate for the baby to be born too. Like, I want that baby to be born. Whereas before, I used to dread the baby being born because then I've got like full court press and I got a screaming baby to deal with. Now I'm like, man, I want that baby to come out so I can help her, so I can like hold the baby. I can like walk away with the baby so that she can let her belly rest again. I want to help her. And I know the way that I can do that is to assist her in every way, shape, or form right now, intercede for her, and try to encourage her in any way I can. Literally, my being has wept from grief. Strengthen me according to your word. Turn away my eyes from looking at falsehood and revive me in your way. Establish your word to your servant, which leads to the fear of you. This is just, His word will strengthen us. It will turn us towards fear of him. It will give us the fruits of fear of him and reverence of him above all else. Vav, and let your loving commitments come to me, O Yahuwah, your deliverance according to your word, so that I answer my reprover. For I have trusted in your word, and do not take away from my mouth the word of truth entirely. For I have waited for your right rulings, that I might guard your Torah continually. Forever and ever, that I might walk in a broad place. For I have sought your orders, that I might speak of your witnesses before sovereigns, and not be ashamed, that I might delight myself in your commands, which I have loved, that I might lift up my eyes to your commands, which I have loved, while I meditate on your laws. This is Eliyahu's prime moment of testing here. The big testing actually took place when he was back with the widow. When is he being obedient? When he was eating with crows. Like, your life right now, y'all, has some serious testings in it, because this is when you prove someone's character. You don't necessarily prove their character at the Super Bowl kind of like showdown event. That's not necessarily when their character is actually proven and revealed. Their character is proven and revealed in the testing, when their life is miserable, when their life is difficult, when they're experiencing oppression. That's when your character is most expressed. That's when those seeds that are in you are brought to life, and you get to see and examine someone's fruit during their crushing seasons, when they're not on the mountaintop. Eliyahu is literally going to his mountaintop experience right now. He's about to run with supernatural speed. He's about to just have a massive battle. Let's just get to it. I love this chapter. I've read it probably a couple dozen times, and I'm just like, this is amazing. This should be one of those chapters, y'all, you know quite well, but it's very important that you pay attention to something that takes place during the course of this. That's also something he did not necessarily do so well, and it's going to cost him. Check this out, y'all. And this is 1 Kings chapter 18. Hold on. Let's have some oatmeal. Breakfast of choice. Today, you betcha. Let the showdown begin. And it came to be when Ahab saw Eliyahu, that Ahab said to him, "Is that you, O disturber of Israel?" And he answered, "I have not disturbed Israel, but you and your father's house, in that you have forsaken the commands of Yahuwah, and you have followed the Baals. And now send and gather all Israel to me on Mount Carmel, the 450 prophets of Baal, and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table." Ahab then sent for all the children of Israel, and gathered the prophets on Mount Carmel. And Eliyahu came to all the people and said, "How long would you keep hopping between two opinions? If Yahuwah is Elohim, follow him, and if Baal, follow him." But the people answered him not a word. And Eliyahu said to the people, "I alone am left a prophet of Yahuwah, but the prophets of Baal are 450 men. Now let them give us 2 bulls, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, but set no fire. And I prepare the other bull, and shall lay it on the wood, but set no fire. And you shall call on the name of your mighty one, and I call on the name of Yahuwah. And the Elohim who answers by fire, he is Elohim." So all the people answered and said, "The word is good." And Eliyahu said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose 1 bull for yourselves, and prepare it first, for you are many, and call on the name of your mighty one, but set no fire." So they took the bull which was given to them, and prepared it, and called on the name of Baal, from morning even until noon, "O Baal, answer us." But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they leaped about the slaughter place which they had made. And it came to be at noon that Eliyahu taunted them, and said, "Cry aloud, for he is a mighty one. He is meditating, or he's busy, or he's on a journey, or it could be that he's asleep, or has to be awakened." And they cried aloud, and cut themselves, according to their ruling, with knives and spears, until the blood gushed out on them. And it came to be when midday was past, that they prophesied until the time of the bringing of the evening offering. But there was no voice, and no one answered, and no one paying attention. Then Eliyahu said to all the people, "Come closer to me." And all the people came closer to him, and he repaired the slaughter place of Yahuah that was broken down. And Eliyahu took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of Yahuah had come, saying, "Yisrael is your name." And with the stones he built a slaughter place in the name of Yahuah. And he made a trench around the slaughter place, large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. And he arranged the wood, and cut the bull in pieces, and laid it on the wood, and said, "Fill 4 jars with water, and pour it on the ascending offering, and on the wood." Then he said, "Do it a second time." And they did it a second time. And he said, "Do it a third time." And they did it a third time. And the water flowed around the slaughter place, and he filled the trench with water too. And it came to be at the time of the bringing of the evening offering that Eliyahu the prophet came near and said, "Yahuah, Elohim of Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yisrael, let it be known today, you are Elohim in Yisrael, and I, your servant, have done all these matters by your word. Answer me, O Yahuah, and let this people know that you are Yahuah Elohim, and you shall turn their hearts back to you again." Then the fire of Yahuah fell and consumed the ascending offering, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. And all the people saw and fell on their faces and said, "Yahuah, he is the Elohim, Yahuah, he is the Elohim." And Eliyahu said to them, "Seize the prophets of Baal, do not let one of them escape." So they seized them, and Eliyahu brought them down to the Wadi Kishon and slew them there. And Eliyahu said to Ahab, "Go up, eat and drink, because of the sound of the noise of rain." And Ahab went up to eat and to drink, and Eliyahu went up to the top of Carmel, and he bowed down on the ground and put his face between his knees, and said to his servant, "Go up, please, look closely toward the sea." So he went up and looked closely and said, "Not a speck." And 7 times he said, "Go again." And again it came to be the 7th time that he said, "See, a little cloud as small as a man's hand is coming up out of the sea." And he said, "Go up, say to Ahab, hitch up, and go down before the rain stops you." And in the meantime it came to be that the heavens became black with clouds and wind. And there was a heavy rain while Ahab rode and went to Yisrael. And the hand of Yahuah was on Eliyahu, and he girded up his loins and ran ahead of Ahab to the entrance of Yisrael. Come on now. Super epic showdown. This man has been waiting for this moment for a good long while. And you remember back when he met Obed-Yahu, who was like the faithful messenger of Yahuah appointed to deliver 150 prophets or 100 prophets of Baal, 100 prophets of Yah, and he had them hiding in the witness protection program, eating bread and water in the caves. So there's a couple things that take place here that reveal something that's going on in Eliyahu's heart. First of all, he definitely is convinced he's alone still. Now, when all Yisrael gathers to him at Mount Carmel, it's clear that they're literally undecided about whether or not Baal is the Elohim of Elohim or Yahuah is, which tells me the state of the union of Yisrael is totally idolatrous. Scary stuff. Very much idolatry that's taken place. Like the root of darkness has infected the nation pretty bad. There's a spell of witchcraft that's infected the region, and we get some super good insight as to what that is and why that's taking place, y'all. When you read things like, oh yeah, they like offered sacrifices to Baal, and you're like, oh, okay. We don't have like generally a visual, most people did not have a physical visual representation of what that looks like. I was raised in a very, very radically evil world and saw horrible abominations like this taking place in front of my face. I don't really like to talk about it as much anymore, like at all. I'll be real honest. I still get people that reach out to me to do interviews quite often, and I'm really less inclined to do it anymore. It's a lot more popular generally when I talk about like horrible abuse and violence and evil and all this stuff and murder, and people are like, wow, clickbait, man, let's get you on our show. This will be a good one. And I'm like, I am way more interested in talking to people about what this has to say about things and a lot less about what I do. However, Yahuwah has appointed me a testimony that I still need to use when he calls upon me. But I'll just be real honest, y'all. I'm less inclined to do so more and more and more. And I'm way more excited about trying to get people pumped about this word because I've just seen the effectiveness of this word in my life and the lives of others. And if we can develop for ourselves that discipline of the hunger for the word, if we can actually maintain and be satisfied in the hunger of the word, this is the most transformative thing. This is the greatest weapon we have in our arsenal, because if you get well versed in the word, you're able to deal with all of those things that could come your way. Like the reason this spell is over Yisrael, the reason they're effective at perpetrating this radical, intelligent, evil campaign on the children of Israel is because this is the kind of stuff that's happening in the place of worship, in the temple of Yahuwah. If you go to Ezekiel chapter 8, paramount verses to study, y'all. Check this out. Hold on. This is Ezekiel chapter 8. And it came to me in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th of the new moon, as I sat in my house with the elders of Yehudah, sitting before me, that the hand of the Master Yahuwah fell upon me there. And I looked and saw a likeness, like the appearance of fire. From his waist and downward, the appearance was like fire. And from his waist and upward, the appearance of brightness, like glowing metal. And he stretched out the form of a hand, and took me by a lock of my hair. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heavens, and brought me in visions of Elohim to Jerusalem, to the door of the north gate of the inner court, where the seat of the image of jealousy was, which causes jealousy. And see, the esteem of the Elohim of Yisrael was there, like the vision that I saw on the plain. And he said to me, Son of man, please lift your eyes toward the north. And I lifted my eyes northward, and north of the slaughter place gate I saw this image of jealousy in the entrance. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The great abominations which the house of Israel are doing here, driving me away from my set-apart place. And are you still? And you are to see still greater abominations. Then he brought me to the door of the court, and I looked and saw a hole in the wall. And he said to me, Son of man, please dig into the wall. And when I dug into the wall, I saw a door. And he said to me, Go in and see the evil abominations which they are doing there. And I went in and looked and saw all kinds of creeping creatures, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel carved all around on the walls. And facing them stood 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel. And in their midst stood Yosinyahu, son of Shaphan. Each one had a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the dark, each one in the room of his idols? For they say, Yahuwah does not see us. Yahuwah has forsaken the land. And he said to me, You are to see still greater abominations which they are doing. And he brought me to the door of the north gate of the house of Yahuwah. And I saw women sitting there, weeping for Tammuz. Pagan traditions, y'all, like Lent. It's what people are engaged in still to this day. Same practices, y'all, taking place to this day. This is one of the most insidious. He's saying this is even worse than what they were doing in their rooms, where they're doing all this stuff in darkness and in secrets, bowing down and slaughtering toward their idols. Oh, then he said to me, Have you seen this, O son of man? You are to see still greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the house of Yahuwah. And there at the door of the Hekal of Yahuwah, between the porch and the slaughter place, were about 25 men with their backs toward the Hekal of Yahuwah, and their faces toward the east. And they were bowing themselves eastward toward the sun. And he said to me, this is like Luciferians, bro. This is people that are like Freemasons, Luciferians, people that like basically bow down towards knowledge, light bearers, people that are chasing the gods of light. Same stuff, y'all. These beings, these demons, these fallen angels and unclean spirits, principalities, powers, rulers, authorities, dominions, spiritual wickedness in high places, these spiritual forces that are receiving the worship from this carry on the same infectious spiritually transmitted disease to people back then, and they carry it forth today. We should not be surprised that we look around and we still see these things taking place. That should be an indicator of the pulse of the nation. This is the leaders of Israel. 70 of the leaders of the house of Israel are engaged in these practices. Then you have all these women that are engaged in these practices. Then you have other men that are engaged in different ones. This is all taking place within the confines of the religious institutions of the day. And he said to me, have you seen, O son of man? Is it a small matter to the house of Yahudah to do the abominations which they have done here? For they filled the land with violence and turned back to provoke me. And see, they are putting the branch to my nose. Therefore I shall indeed deal in wrath. My eye shall not pardon, nor would I spare. And they shall cry in my ears with a loud voice, but I shall not hear them. Yahuwah gets to this place where the cup of his wrath fills up because he sits there and sees this stuff, y'all. He doesn't look away. This is the difference between an all-knowing one and an Elohim or a God or a deity that is not omnipresent. He's capable of seeing and witnessing and testifying against all people, against all their deeds that have committed continuously. He's able to render judgment based off of all of these things that are taking place and then spare the righteous and deliver the wicked to justice. He has the power to do that. And his effectiveness, his ways of doing it are perfect, y'all. This is why we have this command in like all the way back into Leviticus about loving our neighbors and interceding for them, not bearing a grudge. And even though I could list grievances and my flesh and the desire that was within me, especially early on, was to list grievances against all these people that I saw doing these kinds of evil practices, that I saw slaughtering their children, passing them through the fires to Moloch, like it says. Like when I witnessed these things, it built up in me at the time this desire for vengeance, this desire for justice. But the enemy corrupted my mind to make me think I was the one to execute violence and justice, that deliverance comes through violence. And what you see is that deliverance comes through intercession. When men and women intercede, that's like praying for somebody who didn't necessarily ask for it. When we intercede on behalf of others, and we ask Yahuwah to render unto others according to what he sees fit, not according to what we are, we allow him to set up, if they are appointed to destruction, perfect destruction. If they're appointed to deliverance, deliverance. Because even back with Eliyahu, he didn't slaughter Ahab. Even though Ahab is he's complicit with a lot of these acts because he's allowing it to take place in his kingdom. And yet you don't see him rendering the death blow that is going to be ascribed to Ahab. A random archer is going to kill Ahab, but not Eliyahu. Eliyahu could. Elisha could. But you see, they choose not to. They choose to continue to not go past the word of Yahuwah that's put in their lips. They're careful not to open their mouth and pronounce judgment against people that's not theirs to give. You let Yahuwah do that, right? If we go back to Eliyahu, I just want to read chapter 9 because this is savage. Okay, right after chapter 8, he shows him behind the veil of all this radical intelligent evil that's taking place. But then he shows him how he's going to deal with it. Chapter 9. And he called out in my hearing with a loud voice, saying, let the punishers of the city draw near, each with his weapon of destruction in his hand. The scariest thing ever, y'all. These are like Yahuwah's kill team. I want to see it, y'all, don't you? I want to see this, but I don't, but I do. And look, 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with his battle axe in his hand. I know it says battle axe here. We have no comprehension of what this thing actually is. Like, we don't really know. But these tools that they're about to unleash, maybe it's just a simple axe. Maybe it's just like literally a curved axe. Let me just give you a basic breakdown here for a battle axe versus like a hatchet. A hatchet has a shape that's like, yay. You're like, oh yeah, basic curvature. Okay. Generally, mostly kind of flat with a little bit of a curve on the front. Battle axes are like round, like a crescent moon, so that there's a curve in it. So as you swing it, if you're trying to swing and hit something that's round like a human head, okay, if you have a square surface, you have to hit it just right or you bounce off of it. But if you have a curved surface, you increase the chances of the cutting edge biting in. So battle axes are pretty distinct in that they have a big crescent shape. So maybe that's what he's looking at here. He's like, oh my gosh, these guys are not out here to chop wood. They brought the battle axe. It's like a guy who has his weapon of war. there's a distinction here. I still want to see what these tools look like because these are like Yahuwah's personal kill team, and their weapons have got to be savage cool. And, this is cool. But then there's another guy who's clothed in fine linen with an even more deadly instrument. Check this out. And one man in their midst was clothed with linen and had a rider's inkhorn at his side. And they came in and stood beside the bronze slaughter place. And the esteem of Elohim of Yisrael went up from the cherub, which is at where it had been, to the threshold of the house. And he called to the man clothed with linen, who had the rider's inkhorn at his side, and Yahuwah said to him, Pass on into the midst of the city, into the midst of Jerusalem, and you shall put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over all the abominations that are done within it. And to the others he said in my hearing, Pass on into the city after him and strike. Do not let your eye pardon nor spare. Kill to destruction old, young men, maidens, and children and women, but do not come near anyone upon whom is the mark, and begin in my set-apart place. So they began with the elders who were in the front of the house. And he said to them, Defile the house and fill the courts with the slain. Go out. And they went out and struck in the city. And as they were striking them, it came to be that I alone was left. And I fell on my face and cried out and said, Master Yahuwah, are you destroying all the remnant of Israel and pouring out your wrath on Jerusalem? And he said to me, The crookedness of the house of Israel and Yehudah is exceedingly great, and the land is filled with bloodshed, and the city filled with that which is warped. For they say, Yahuwah has forsaken the land, and Yahuwah is not seeing. But as for me, my eyes shall not pardon, nor would I spare. I shall recompense their deeds on their own head. And see, the man clothed with linen, who had the inkhorn at his side, reported back and said, I have done as you have commanded me. This is how Yahuwah deals with things. And even as the judgment is being rendered against all this, Ezekiel's interceding for him. He's like, don't kill them all. He's like, don't blot them out. This is just like Moses, y'all. Moses had this heart for the people. Even after they committed great adulterousness, great abominations, they rose up to play at the foot of the mountain of Sinai. He still interceded for him and is like, don't kill them all. Like, your namesake is tied to these people. These are your heritage. These are your precious treasures. These are your people who are called by your name. Be merciful with them, because even though they're lost in their idolatrous ways, there's still a remnant who's preserving the ways of Yah, who's guarding itself against the evil that is abounding outside of it. So even if you today are in the midst of a city that is enthralled with evil, that is saturated in it, like where Chelsea and I lived in Westminster, Colorado, there was a coven who was actively engaging in ritualistic sacrifice, like in our midst, like they're taking place. It was like on national news, the slaughters that were taking place. I think it's the first video on my YouTube channel was a documentary that John Pounders and Now You See TV filmed. Jake Grant, mighty Jake Grant. That's when I met him. Jake Grant does superb audio narrations as well. I highly recommend you go check out Jake Grant. I'll try to put a link in in the description below. But they did a documentary talking about that, and we went and filmed out a bunch of these locations, and we're trying to expose what was going on out there. But we were literally in the front and center of a neighborhood that was saturated with it. We had like gone out walking our neighborhood, praying and asking Yahuwah to let everything hidden be revealed to us, and which is a super dangerous prayer, y'all. You got to be ready and geared up for what happens when Yah does reveal all the things that are taking place in a given area, because it was so evil. And there was a guy who was like, we called him the warlock of countryside. That was like this neighborhood we lived in. And it was just abounding. He had idols all over. He set it like overnight, set up all these idols all over his property, physical giant big idols and portals and all this stuff, and like black and white checkerboard floors with skulls and pyramids lining up his living room in the garage. And we were all like, this is crazy. So I started interceding, and I started asking Yahuwah for an opportunity to go and witness to this guy, because I wanted a showdown. I saturate myself in the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel and 1st and 2nd Kings all the time, which makes me like zealous that I'm going to have these showdown moments too. And I was like, there's going to come a moment where I'm going to get a chance to talk to this guy. And I kept praying that Yahuwah would give me an opportunity to do this. And we started basically spiritually mapping out our neighborhood and writing down the areas where we felt and experienced the greatest spiritual oppression. We felt like they were the greatest strongholds of the adversary. And we started mapping out a lot of the clues of who was involved in a lot of these things that were taking place there. And back then, this is really how my mind was always wired, is I felt like I want to like build up a whole database about all these bad people and then just totally take them out. Not physically at the time, but spiritually. I was like, my weapons are not carnal, but they're mighty in Yah to the pulling down of strongholds. You guys got to learn to train to put down all the AR-15s. Sell your guns if you have not a love for your enemies yet, y'all. For real. Like, it's more important that you learn to discipline the heart so that you realize this war is not carnal. If Yah is not the one who protects you and you think your firearms are the ones that do it, please listen. I'm not trying to say that you all have to. I'm not saying that all of you have the heart condition that's wrong. But some of you guys, your firearms are your idols. They really are. It's the thing you're going to call upon in your hour of need. In my hour of greatest need, I'll turn to it, and it will provide for me food and protection for my family. So do the things made of wood and stone and metal. But having eyes they see not, and having ears they hear not, y'all. It's dead weight for a lot of you. Just consider it strongly, y'all. Use it to advance the kingdom of Yahuah. Sell it and use it to advance the kingdom of Yah. And see how Yah takes care of you in a unique and powerful way because of it. I had to do that. So, anyways, my personal convictions, and ones I just try to plant a super painful stone in your shoe so that you step on it all the time and think about it all the time, and he draws it to your remembrance continually. But I had this, like, for months I was praying for these people that were involved in this. There was like literal cages in walls that were going on in this neighborhood. It was crazy. It was right next to a bunch of defense contractor buildings and like special forces training airport where they had all kinds of black operation stuff going on. It was a really sketchy place to live, y'all. Colorado is like the military industrial complex and the spy agency center of the nation. It's like the relocation capital of the New World Order, for lack of better terms. They're like, let the 4 horses ride here. Let's put up their statues everywhere and sacrifice children to them. It's crazy, but it's really like that out there. People that are in Denver are like, it's nuts, man. It's like the number 2 or number 3 human trafficking center of the world, particularly of the United States. But anyways, really noxious stuff that was going on there. And we'd be walking around and like crazy stuff would happen in front of our faces. Like people were building these rooms into the hillsides, and they would build cages, like tunneled cages from the driveway where children would get offloaded, covered with like purple butterflies and mirrors and all this stuff. And it would go all the way back into the side of their hillside in their like armored building. And you're like, what the heck is this? You're like, does anybody else see this? Like, this is strange. People are like remodeling their homes and putting in cages. You're like, everyone's like, oh yeah, they're great. Great neighbors. They put up their Christmas lights every year in November. You're like, anyways, it was really sketchy. At the same time, we really wanted out, obviously. We were like, can we leave? Can we leave? Please just let us leave. Let us leave. Let us leave. We want to get out. We want out. And so we're like, let's just spend all our time on Zillow and realestate.com or whatever it was. And we're like, Chelsea was like looking online all the time. And I was like, we should just get out and move to the mountains and have a little log cabin in the mountains and disappear and just build gates, close them, and make sure people leave us alone. Bring the guns. It was like our whole world. That was it. I was like, we were practicing bugging out. If you don't know what bugging out is, it's where you run. Basically flee. You basically flee to the mountains. You're like, oh my gosh, when you see the abomination of desolation coming near to Jerusalem, don't go back for your coat. Just run. So then you keep all your stuff in your car all the time. So my car had like fully loaded tactical gear loadout for like 7 to 29 days of kit ready to go. It had expandable different attachments on it. I was like helping people build bug out bags all the time. I was like the tactical consultant, and Chelsea and I were backpacking all the time. We're like, we're just backpackers strapped with guns and ready to rumble. You're like, yeah, it's for bears and mountain lions and 2-legged bad guys. That's what we were all into at the time. We got kind of yoked up with a lot of the prepper community because they're tight, but also very, very much like incredulous. It's great. It's very conflict of interest kind of people. You got some really strong believers and some really strong believers in a different kingdom that are almost like, it almost got us to where we were praying every day that the world would end so that we could go and live our life the way we wanted to, and we could get to where the world was without law. We're like, life will be a lot better when there's no rule of law and we can be our own rule of law. And we were like, let's get there. we had no friends besides these kinds of people at the time because everyone else thought we were crazy. We were into conspiracy theories and all this stuff. And we were like, the world's going to end tomorrow. Don't you know it? The Pope's signing all kinds of declarations. The United Nations is coming. I'm not trying to like diminish from any of these things as an absolute reality, y'all. I'm just trying to say that you can start there. Don't stay there. If you start there, that's fine. That's what a lot of people got here, to like a deeper hunger for truth, which is the right desire. The right desire is to not be overruled by monsters, to not have Jezebel and the prophets of Baal slaughtering children around you. Like, it's right that you have a zealous anger against this radical intelligent evil that's taking place around you, and it's right that you feel furious that you're part of a system that perpetuates this, that not only that, parts of the money that you have to give, compulsory taxes, compulsory education that's brainwashing the children, is going to pay and support this system. It's absolutely frustrating, and I understand your desires to get away from that. However, you have to understand Yahuah can appoint you to get out of it. He can also appoint you to stay within it and protect you and preserve you inside it. Remember the examples. Obadiah is in the house of Jezebel and Ahab, and he is presiding over all of it, and he is not the one being slaughtered and butchered. You have Eliyahu, who is in like the witness protection program, living with widows who are cooking fires over sticks. Like, there's those two options, y'all. We have to be willing to abide wherever it is that Yahuah is. And at the time, Yahuah was like, you guys got to stay. In one day, while Chelsea was at home looking for houses to try to get away from everything, I was up and working totally different place. And Yahuah put it on her and was like, now is not the time for you to leave. Now is not the time for you to move. And at the same time, totally different place, Yah put the exact same words on my heart, and I came home and I told her that. And she was like, that's exactly what he told me. And I'm like, dang it, we got to stay here. Well, we got to figure out how to occupy until he comes. And so we started trying to just seek through intercession. There was constant spiritual warfare that we were dealing with at the time, like poltergeist stuff flying around the rooms, lights turning on and off, fans, light bulbs exploding, crazy stuff that would happen, Bibles flying across the room. We had all kinds of crazy spiritual warfare that was going on against us at the time, because these people literally were in cloaks. They would come out in the middle of the night, open up their garage. They'd be in robes and cloaks doing rituals. Like, we had security cameras. We could like watch this stuff happen. It was insane. Anyways, I had this like desire to pray for this warlock of countryside, and I finally had a day where I felt like Yahuah told me I could go. And so I started walking towards this place, and I'm like, dude, I'm like Eliyahu, ready to go to the prophets of Baal. Let's do this thing. And I'm walking over there, and as I'm walking over, no joke, storm clouds ripple up over this lake. We used to live by this little lake, and these clouds just start rolling over this lake, turning black and darker. And I'm like, oh man, it's going down. And I'm just praying against all this spiritual stuff that's taking place and praying against these powers that were trying to contend against me. And I was like, I will not move off of what you have called me to. And I'm walking like really confidently. And I kid you not, I roll my ankle off a curb so hard I crumble into the street, and I'm like crying. I'm like, oh, I will not turn back. Even if I have to crawl there, I will not turn back. And I'm crawling on the side of the sidewalk. And I'm like, I will not turn back from what you've called me to do. You put your word in my mouth, I will surely go. And I'm walking all the way to this guy's door. I get there. I'm like ready to go. And he has dragons that he's put in his front yard that like are snaking their way through the ground up and down this like artistic man. Like, his lawn art was unreal creepy, like your Halloween nightmare style. And I knock on the door, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm like, I'm just going to join up and start a conversation with him. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to get to know this guy and find out who he was and find out what was really going on with him. Anyways, he and I start talking to the door, like super pleasant, like, oh, how's it going? And I'm like, hey, you got some really interesting artwork out here. Like, you want to tell me about some of this stuff, you know? And he's like, yes, I'm so glad you asked. And he's like a 60-year-old dude. Just looks like a normal dude, right? It's not that all these people look like they're drinking blood, sacrificing nightmare, crazy, scary people. Like, most of them just look like the neighbor next door. That's how they hide in plain sight. Anyways, he's like, oh, you should see my garage. He opens up his garage, and it's checkerboard floors and pyramids of skulls. Like, fake skulls, except for these creepy, insane, like devil horn ones and dragon horns and all this stuff. And he's got statues of all these fallen angels straight up intermingling with people and children all over everywhere. And you're like, This is the guy's garage. And he's like, I should show you around. And I'm like, you bet. So we go through his whole house and he is showing me everything. And I'm literally sitting there and I'm like, this passage of Hezekiah, when the messengers of Babel, the sovereign of Babel, come to comfort him because they're like, hey, we heard you were going to die and then we heard you got better miraculously. And they're like, what's going on? And he's like, why don't I just show you everything? And it says Hezekiah showed him every single thing he had. There was nothing he didn't show him. Even his most secret treasures, he showed him. And then as Isaiah comes to him and is like, what did you show those guys? And he's like, everything. He's like, all of it's gone. They're going to take everything, dude. Dang it. I wonder how many times Isaiah is just like face palming, and Ezekiel. Anyways, that's what I felt like. I was living in this moment where this guy's going to show me everything he was going through, y'all. And as we went outside, he started showing me all the idols that he set up in his backyard. And he's describing each one of them and starts to kind of name them off. And he gets to, is it maybe Mercury? I think it was Mercury. He calls it Mercury. Anyways, he's calling them by their Greek names. And I start calling them by their biblical names. And he's like, what? Like Lucifer. And he's like, and he's standing on the stairs. And he turns towards me and he's like, I don't worship Lucifer. And then I'm like, that's the name of the deity you're dealing with, Halal ben Shahar. And he starts shaking like this. And he goes, no, that's not what I do. And walks back inside. And I was like, whoa. The level of internal deception, you guys, you got to recognize there is a human being inside there, like an actual human being who was a baby crawling around. Like there was somebody's mom carrying that child in their womb who had a dad, a father. Like there was love at times in this human's life. This was a created child. All right. You have to remember, these are all children of Yahuah. No one was supposed to die. Yahuwah is not willing that any should die, but that all should come to know him. Like it was in that moment where I was standing on those steps where all of like the anger and or directed desire for this guy to be brought to justice and vengeance and all this stuff. And I'm looking for an opportunity to kind of set him up, to catch evidence on him. And all of that melted off of me, y'all, because I saw him as a human being, totally consumed and given over to this demonic strongholds that were ruling him, to these restless, lying, deceiving spirits that were just infesting his life. And my heart broke. I had like compassion for him. I had so much compassion for him. And I realized my position in being there was to sincerely learn how to minister to him, that we need to still learn how to be the ministers of Yahuwah's deliverance to anyone. Like to anyone. If you have the opportunity to be the one standing on Mount Carmel and have the showdown, and you have the sword in your hand and you could cut down and kill all 450 prophets at Baal, you've got to pause and recognize that it may not be for you to do the slaying. Do you understand what I'm saying? The slaying that we do most effectively comes from the words of our mouth. Ezekiel didn't open up his mouth and give out his kill orders on all of these people that were perpetuating this evil. Yahuwah did. The angel of Yahuwah, the word of Yahuwah, the one carrying that writer's inkhorn, the man clothed in linen, who put the mark on their foreheads, that mark was to protect those. Like if you guys really want to understand the difference between the mark of the beast and the mark of Yahuwah, the one that goes and seals all of the messengers, all of the people of Yahuwah, and then sets to destruction all the children of the beast, that's it. Like Ezekiel 9 is that passage that talks about it. It's about the people who are groaning and sighing at the evil that's taking place around them. It's the bowels of mercy where you guys will rise up early and pray and intercede for deliverance for the city that you're in, for the state that you live in, for the leaders, for the global elite, for the New World Order, for all of the radical, intelligent, evil humans that are under the influence of these systems of evil that are out there taking place and trying to bring about the revelation of their beast kingdom. We are to intercede for them and seek their deliverance so that they, you guys, could become double agents against their bosses. That's the goal. The goal is not, if I cut that guy down and I'd killed him right there in his house, or if I'd killed him somewhere else, what kind of ramifications does that bring? What kind of fruitfulness is it going to bring? Like Yeshua literally looked at his disciples at the moment where they were trying to seize him and take him captive, and he told them to put away their swords. He's like, don't you know I could call 10,000 legions of messengers down to deliver me? He's like, isn't it in our power that Yahuwah could send out these destroying angels in a moment and eradicate and scourge the earth from all this wickedness? Like, is it not in our mighty one's power to do this? But he is restrained from doing it for a reason, for a time or a season. There's other times where clearly he does it, where there's heart attacks that kill these people in their sleep and it stops them immediately. There's times where Yahuwah can appoint for these people to meet their end immediately. But we need to understand that power, even if we can possess it, we should instead surrender it back to Yahuwah and let him deal out mishpat, justice, perfect justice according to his plans and desires. And I got to go with that man, and I spent hours with him that day. He started showing me all these things that were inside his house, and he revealed to me so much of the strongholds that started this for him. He started getting really heavily into drugs about 5 years ago, and there's certain kinds of drugs that opened him up to the spirit realm, and that's where these things infected him, y'all. Like, he was seeking an alteration of himself, and all these things came to him and started giving him ideas to make money. It's kind of where it started for him. And like a lot of this, he said money literally started coming to him. That money from all kinds of different people, checks and business ventures, all this stuff just started coming and flooding to him. And he said once he got that money, he had this desire to start putting up all these idols and all these statues and all these things. And it just started to grow from there. And then that insidious evil just began to infect his entire life, y'all, to where like his goal in life was to go and try to have affairs with women who were married, like, and then to perpetuate even greater evils. It just like became this waterfall effect for him where that consumed his entire life. And this man was so much of a shell that the human that was abiding still within there was the spirit that was left in them was so small. And you know what? This is the reality of so many of these people that you're looking at as they are the worst people on the earth, man. You are seeing you're seeing an evil spirit in a human skin suit so many times, you guys. You're looking at a person who is a shell of who they are. And like Yeshua had compassion for the men in the Gadarene tombs who was mutilating himself and cutting himself. He had these bowels of mercy that churned up in him when he saw demons trying to possess people and throw them into the fire and drown them. Like he looked at their fathers and they're pleading for him to deliver their children. He's like, please, since they were a child, it's been like this. Help us. There's women who have been bound up for 18 years of their life, crippled over, doubled over, and they've been bound. And he's like, yeah, let this be loosened off of you. Like, there's people who are bound up in this, y'all, and our position is to seek for their deliverance and intercede for them so that binding that is holding them so fast would be freed. And they can stand upright again and walk in the ways of Yahuwah. Over time, after I left that guy's house, I did not see a great transformation in his life initially. And we ended up, Yahuwah pointed us to be there, I think almost another year and a half or 2 years that we had to stay there. And the cycle of all of the ritual stuff that was happening there didn't stop, y'all. However, what did grow in us was a maturing of our faith. What grew in us was a understanding of the mechanics of spiritual warfare. Like, we became a lot more accustomed to terrain mapping an area from the spiritual side of how things kind of are and getting an idea of how things are taking place. And it gave us, it was like basic combat training for us, because it gave us the ability to understand how the mechanics of these covens and these cults operate. But all of it was still taking place. It's the time that we left there. And even when we drove back, I don't know, maybe a year ago and drove through the neighborhood to just try to see what it was like. And it's that territory is just kind of perpetuating. And there's other territories where it feels like when we travel through them, you can feel the kingdom of Yah is growing. Like, we have loved that about being in the Ozarks, like specifically more southern Missouri or northern Arkansas. Like, we really love the people here, because we have seen more people that are battle tested, who have endured so much suffering. Like, we have never encountered more physical challenges like as we have been since being in Missouri. Like, my wife's like, why do they call it that? Why do they call it misery? It is misery. Why is it like misery here? And it is like that a lot. You're like, unbelievable oppression. Like, we wanted to leave and go to Florida this winter. And we're like, we'll just go down to Florida. And Yahuwah clearly shut down the doors for us to do that and was like, you need to stay here. And because of that, we've been able to go and connect with different people in home fellowships and get to meet some of the most mighty sons and daughters of Yah we've ever encountered in our life are out here. And they're scattered around all over the place, y'all. And they are in the thick of it, y'all. Crazy environmental pressures like nowhere else I've ever been in my life are here. Like crazy, y'all. It's savage out here. It's brutal. It's wonderful and horrifying all at the same time. Like, and you get to talk to people that have been here a while. Like, I was talking to a guy yesterday at Shabbat that was like, I've been here 5 years. And he's like, it's one of the harshest environments I've ever been in my life. He's like, I used to work in heating and air in New York. I'm like, oh man. He's like, New York City. They like glass up the building, put all the windows in, and then you climb inside there and you're like climbing in the ducting of it. And he's like, as hot as the surface of the sun. He's like, so hot, right? He's like, I've been out here doing fencing, and he's like, and it's hotter, and it's so much hotter. And he's like, this'll kill me. This is killing me. And he's like, it's hotter. He's like, I've experienced hotter here and colder here and more mold here. He's like, if you leave a building sitting here for like 3 months with the door closed, mold, just poof. You're like, what? And people have a different mentality about maintenance here. They're like, don't maintain stuff. They're like, I'm not living in there anymore. Building gets swallowed, gone. Like in months, buildings disappear here. And you're like, this place is crazy. And it's like the sifting ground. It's like, hey, we want to move to the Ozarks. Want to come get sifted? Like literally unbelievable battleground. Anyways, I don't necessarily recommend it unless Yahuwah personally is directly confirming and calling it to you. However, I absolutely recommend it if he is, because then you can be in a place of obedience, which is the best place to be in. And it's a great opportunity to get refiner's fires, just to light it up, son, light you up. Because you know what? The goal in life is sooner or later we got to go through the fire. And I'd rather go through the fire here in this life than the one after, because I don't want to die the second death. You know what I mean? I want to be preserved until his coming. I want him to be able to see his reflection in me. That's how you know the silver or the gold is refined, is like you can literally see yourself like a mirror in it. That's what the goal is in all of this. Eliyahu's getting refined, y'all. All these people get refined throughout their walks and throughout their journeys. Eliyahu clearly still has this convinced belief that he's the only prophet of Yahuwah who's left. You see him even as he was contending in that showdown, in that fiery showdown, he reviles their Elohim, which is a big no-no, y'all. Like, if you ever start engaging in this kind of stuff in spiritual warfare, you don't revile their Elohim. You don't mock them. You don't trample on the enemy. Do you know what I mean? Spiritually with your mouth, because you're a dude. Just to understand your place. This is Eliyahu, the guy who prayed and it didn't rain for years. He still shouldn't mock an Elohim. You don't bring railing accusations even against the devil. Like when contending with the devil for the body of Moses, Michael did not bring a railing accusation against him, but said, let Yahuwah rebuke you. That's like, if you go back to Zechariah 3, where you get snatched from the flames. He said, let Yahuwah rebuke you, when Satan is literally standing there contending with Yahshua, the high priest. He's like, let Yahuwah rebuke you. You let Yahuwah rebuke these entities, man, these spiritual powers that are way over us. Ask Yahuwah to rebuke them for you. Because by doing so, you're not the one contending directly, fighting with them, okay? You're not the one holding the battle axe, being like, yeah. You know what you are? You're the one who's interceding towards the one who created the heavens and the earth and the seas and all that's in it. You're seeking him to be like, hey, how about you open your mouth and rebuke him, please? Way different story, because at his mouth, when he opens, it's over. You know what I mean? So, anyways, Eliyahu gets consumed with this fear, and it infects him. I'm going to read you guys a little bit more, because this is a salty chapter too. This is Ezekiel 19. And when Ahab reported to Jezebel all that Eliyahu had done, also how he slew all the prophets with the sword, Jezebel sent a messenger to Eliyahu, saying, so let the mighty ones do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And he feared, and rose up and ran for his life, and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Yehudah, and left his servants there. This is that fear that Eliyahu still got in his heart, right? Yahuwah is going to shove him through the pressing here. We got to get that fear out, y'all. You got to get that fear out of you. Because as you do, remember what we said, the word will fill you with the reverence of Yah. It will grow in you the reverence of Yahuwah. As the reverence of Yahuwah grows in you, all the other fears die. Okay? But he himself went a day's journey. And he feared and rose up and ran for his life, and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Yehudah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree. If y'all don't know what a broom tree is, it's a juniper tree. Ash juniper trees. If you guys don't know what juniper trees are, go around the majority of the country. They're everywhere. Juniper trees, they're amazing. Their berries are delicious and nutritious and packed with everything you need for a vivacious day. So eat juniper berries. Yes, they will not harm you. I grew up with people that said, don't eat those, they'll kill you. No, then they fed me like Fruity Pebbles. It poisoned my soul, dadgummit. Terrifyingly bad stuff in there. I know Fruity Pebbles taste delicious, y'all. Juniper berries are way better for you. You can eat them like peppercorns, like meat. Grind them up like peppercorn. It's good for you. Anyways, tell my children that all the time. I'm like, yeah, I know it tastes like that. Just eat it. It's good for you. And the needles, evergreen needles, are always packed with vitamin C and will give you a boost in this time of calamity and cold weather and sad vitamin C lacking days of March. Hang in there. It's going to get better. And he prayed that he might die. Anybody else ever prayed to die? Anybody? Anybody else prayed to die? Be like, it's better to die. And he said, it is enough. Now, Yahuwah, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. And he lay and slept under a broom tree, juniper tree. And see, a messenger touched him and said to him, rise, eat. And he looked and saw by his head a cake baked on coals and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and turned and lay down. And the messenger of Yahuwah came back the second time and touched him and said to him, rise, eat, for the journey is too much for you. And he rose up and ate and drank, and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights as far as Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. Bro, this is why we're fanatical Milanites. 2 meals, bread and water, 40 days and nights of limitless energy, walking continually 40 days and 40 nights. That's what's up. We need that kind of food. And if you're appointed to it, Yahuwah can provide it to you anywhere you are, day or night. I just love that. Don't you want to eat that bread? I surely do. It's like manna. That's the word of Yahuwah strengthening him. By the way, you guys, this is called your daily bread for a reason. They're like, eat it. It's good for you. You can live off this. You can live off this. You can be moderately sustained off this. There's a difference. The word satisfies. Oats are scrumptious too. Hang in there. And there he went into a cave and spent the night there. And see, the word of Yahuwah came to him and said to him, what are you doing here, Eliyahu? And he said, I have been very jealous for Yahuwah Elohim of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They've thrown down your slaughter places. They have killed your prophets with the sword. And I am left, I alone, and they seek my life to take it. And he said, go out and stand on the mountain before Yahuwah. And see, Yahuwah passed by, and a great and strong wind tearing the mountains and breaking the rocks in pieces before Yahuwah. Yahuwah was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. Yahuwah was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. Yahuwah was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. And it came to be when Eliyahu heard it that he wrapped his face in his robe and went out and stood at the cave opening. And see, a voice came to him, and he said, what are you doing here, Eliyahu? And he said, I have been very jealous for Yahuwah Elohim of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have thrown down your slaughter places, and they've killed your prophets with the sword. And I am left, I alone, and they seek my life to take it. And Yahuwah said to him, go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and you shall go in and anoint Hazael as sovereign over Aram, and anoint Jehu son of Nimshi as sovereign over Yisrael, and anoint Elisha son of Shaphat of Abel Maholah as prophet in your place. And it shall be that whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, Jehu does kill, and whoever escapes from the sword of Jehu, Elisha does kill. And I shall leave 7,000 in Yisrael, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. And he went from there and found Elisha son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he was with the 12th. And Eliyahu passed by him and threw his robe on him. And he left the oxen and ran after Eliyahu and said, please let me kiss my father and my mother, and then I follow you. And he said to him, go, turn back, for what have I done to you? And he turned back from him and took a yoke of oxen and slaughtered them and cooked their flesh, using the implements of the oxen, and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he rose up and followed Eliyahu and became his servant. Yahuwah has a way of raising up the people to deliver out the mishpat, y'all. Be faithful to intercede for our brothers and sisters that need it every single day. Rise up early and defend the kingdom of Yahuwah against the violence of deception and doubt and despair, and seek the deliverance, because by doing so, y'all, you can become those most wanted, dead or alive, dangerous sons and daughters of Yahuwah. And you know what? We also can see the kingdom of Yahuwah come to pass. He brings about his justice, y'all, in perfect and unique ways. And even if you're doubting whether or not you're the only righteous person that's left in your city, that's the only righteous person that's guarding the ways of Yah in the whole region, he can have 7,500 people, y'all, hiding just around the corner from you. And he is keeping from you from knowing and interacting with for such a time as this to test you in your season of wilderness wanderings, y'all. But if you can continue to go and eat the bread and the water from him that comes down from heaven, that is the word of Yah, if you can continue to sustain yourself here from this word, you will be satisfied in it, y'all. And he will appoint to you fellowships and communities and people that you need at the just right time. And you know what? Seek him with all your heart, and he will surely be found by y'all. Anyways, I love you all so much. I so appreciate spending some time with you this morning, and I pray Yahuwah would invigorate your soul and give you a passionate pursuit of his ways above all else. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.